All right. Hi, I'm your host, Amber Celestial Angel, and today our lovely mom featured is Nina Morocco. So let's start with your kids, family, and an introduction into who you are and what you do that sings to your soul.
Oh, Amber, thank you so much for having me on and having me here. It's a pleasure to come and speak with you. Yes, I am a quantum healing practitioner from Scotland. I am a single mum, and it was quite the journey to get to where I am now. Where to start? I have a little girl who is 3. Her name is Marnie. Um, she kind of came into our lives just she really kind of gave us it was like being hit by a bus when she came along. it She wasn't planned, but she wasn't unwanted. I'd always wanted to be a mum. It wasn't exactly the right time or anything like that, but I knew she was coming. I had an experience before I even felt pregnant where I had this little orb come through my kitchen window, and she just kind of sparkled there for a wee minute. And I don't know, something inside just went, this is your child. She's coming to check you out. And she just came in and she was there for a little second, and then the little orb went away, and I was kind of like, okay. I was single, I was living alone, I was doing something completely different. I was a makeup artist at the time. And I was just kind of like, okay. I didn't even really know how much I believed in all of that. I mean, I've always been quite a spiritual person, and I'd been on an awakening path, I guess, from birth myself. So, but I was just kind of like, okay, I'll just let that be what it is. And when I discovered I was pregnant, I wasn't actually with her dad. We were close friends. We had separated, but we were still kind of hanging out. And all of a sudden, it was like, okay, you're pregnant. Very, very early on, I realized it wasn't going to be very easy. I started to be sick at 6 weeks, and it went from, oh, it's a bit of morning sickness to this is getting scary very, very quickly. I was being sick up to 30 times a day, just constantly. I couldn't even keep water down. It was just constant. I could barely get out of bed. I could not eat anything I would normally eat. I was pretty much vegan at the time I fell pregnant. I was super healthy, super fit, and I just couldn't eat anything I would normally eat. I was on the bare minimum of kind of breakfast foodstuffs, possibly keep a little bit down, but I mean it was really extreme, really, really quickly. So I went from being this independent woman who had her own career and this, that, and the other, was running around, having a life, to bedridden within a very, very short amount of time. Um, and I was sick for 7.5 months. And yeah, I think the only reason really I left the house was to go to hospital to get put in a drip. That was kind of my life for months, and I really, really struggled. It was really scary, and nobody really understood what the issue was. Nobody in the medical profession really knew what hyperemesis gravidarum was. They didn't diagnose me until I was 20 weeks. So I went a really long stretch of time just being told, have a little ginger biscuit and sit down type thing, when it was really extreme. So I struggled the whole way through, to the point where I was really considering whether I could keep this child, but it was so extreme. I thought I was going to die, or if I didn't die, I would kill her because I wasn't able to keep anything down. How was I going to nourish this child? So I really, really considered, was this the right thing? And I remember one morning, was 9 weeks pregnant. I had just spent most of the very early part of the morning in the bathroom, and I was really trying to figure out whether I could keep doing this. And I lay back in my bed and I closed my eyes, and I wasn't asleep. I wasn't awake, but it was like when you have a vision, it's just like the whole reality around you just changes. And I just saw this being, and she had the most amazing eyes, and she was just saying, I am here for a reason. I have a really, really important mission. I've chosen you for a reason. Please keep going. Please just keep going. And I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. And I didn't know what was happening. I kind of came to, and I was just like, what was that? But I had this really strong sense that she was coming through to tell me that, I needed to keep going. So I did. And yeah, it was a really difficult pregnancy. I was in a really bad shape by the end of it. I had a kind of team of medical staff trying to get me through the end of this pregnancy, psychiatric people and all sorts of people trying to keep me going because I was really, really struggling. And I remember a psychiatric nurse came to the house and she said, you're not going to be able to breastfeed because we're going to put you on antidepressants as soon as she's born. So you're not going to breastfeed. And I just went, no, that's not okay. I'm not having just gone through what I've just gone through and not be able to. There were so many things wrong with that in my, there's so much about breastfeeding that is so nourishing for you both. I mean, my whole being thought, that's the one thing that's going to get me out of any depression is being able to nourish her. So I just kind of went, no, these people are not the ones that are going to get me through this. I have to be the one to get me through this. So I had to fight to keep a lot of her birth and everything the way I wanted it to be, because there was a lot of takeover. It was a lot of, you're not in any condition to be making any decisions about these things. And I just, like that mama tiger bit in me just went, actually, no, I want it this way and I want it this way.
Yeah.
So I did hypnobirthing, and that was when it started turning around. I started hypnobirthing at 30 weeks. And it was just an online course that I was doing myself, and it was like something really positive that I could focus on, that I could do not only for myself, like the breathing and the meditation and all that stuff was really good, but also it was like there was something positive towards the birth, and I didn't just need to be terrified of what was about to come. I was, actively doing something to get me through this. And I remember thinking way back then, even, the magnitude of what I'd been through in the pregnancy, I thought to myself, there's something I could be doing here to help other people in future. And I just had this really strong feeling that this was happening because I was being pushed in a direction to help other people from what I had been through. So then she was born, and it started out just, you know, the hypnobirthing and the breathing and everything really helped it, you know, go very, very smoothly. It went all really fine, and then it didn't. It went fine, and then all of a sudden it didn't, and I can't even really remember the rest. It was a blur. I just remember it being from very calm to like some kind of scene from Vikings, like a pagan sacrifice or something. It was just like, whoa. And after that, the scariness didn't stop. Marnie was rushed to hospital at 2 weeks old because she couldn't breathe. Her airway was closing. She had a subglottal hemangioma, which is like a series of birthmarks in her throat that were growing at a really, really extensive rate. So she wasn't breathing properly. She had this enormous rash all along her neck, which we later found was the birthmark, but showing cosmetically on her skin. She had a wound from her forceps, which no medical staff paid any attention to, and I tried to flag that up. But this thing got infected, and she had a really, really serious infection going throughout her whole body. So she was in a bad way at 2 weeks old. So we were rushed to hospital. They had to do an immediate bronchoscopy to see what this hemangioma was, and they said it was the largest hemangioma they'd seen in a baby. So then we were moved to another hospital. This was like 2 weeks after birth, when I was still like, boof, what is just going on? Suddenly I'm in this children's hospital. Like, I had a 3rd-degree tear, so I was not comfortable at all and in a physical state to be on a little camp bed. And this was just like, whoa, okay, this is too much. We got through that the best we could. And then at 10 months old, she was rushed into hospital again because she'd had hydrocephalus. When she was born, she had 2 nurses going tag team with the forceps. And her brain had been so squeezed that the bottom of her brain, the cerebellum, was actually out the bottom of her skull. It was hanging down. And that was stopping the flow of spinal fluid. So her brain was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And this was at 10 months old, when we had been in and out of hospital every kind of other month doing procedures for the hemangioma. And then this with the brain came along, and it was just like, there was nothing that could have prepared me for that conversation with that doctor. It was just like, when you hear those words, like, your child needs immediate brain surgery, it's just like what else you got? Like, how do I even consider carrying on? This is just like, it was just so much. But the thing that kept me going was her and her smile and all the love that we had. It was just, that was what kept me going. And all those little tiny moments that you have together, when it's just, that's the thing that keeps you hanging on. And I don't think I could have appreciated those moments as much if none of that had happened, because they were so precious at that moment. It just made me appreciate her 1,000 times more than I could have ever imagined. So that was like almost 2 and a bit, 3 years of my life with the pregnancy, right up until she turned 1, was just constant, just trauma. basically, just relentless trauma. And I knew all of this was a test in endurance. And about a year after all of that, I spent that year on the sofa. I was just like, I was just frozen. I could, I wasn't depressed, but I just could not function. I did as much as I needed to do to make sure she had everything she needed and she was okay, but I just couldn't do anything more than, I didn't want to go to mommy and baby groups. Having that conversation with other mums it wasn't an equal conversation. My experience had been so different that it would just completely change the conversation, and it just didn't feel right to be around that. And I just stayed on the sofa for about a year, and then I started going to a sound healing class. I think they're called sound baths, or just sound healing sessions. And for the first time, I was just kind of like just completely zoning out. My brain wasn't going, my mind wasn't thinking. It was just like, complete rest and relaxation. And I realized that I needed to do more of this. And as she was getting a little bit older, I was noticing my own behaviors, my own reactions to things. The usual, you'd hear yourself like your parents, and you would see other people's reactions like you were treated when you were a child. Like if she knocked something off a windowsill, somebody would react in a certain way, and I would suddenly be triggered like I was when I was little. I'd react in the same way, or I'd have flashbacks. And I was just noticing, how it's like when you become a mum, parts of your childhood become so relevant to you all of a sudden. You start remembering bits, and it's like, okay, there's some stuff here that I really need to look at. And I became very focused on making sure that I was going to be okay, and I needed to do a lot of healing and enough healing to make sure that I wasn't going to pass any of my stuff on to her. I wanted to be the one to break that ancestral line. And that's when my relationship with her father started breaking down. I remember expressing this to him and saying, I really want to focus on healing myself and making sure that I'm okay for her. And, I don't want to screw her up. And he said, well, we're going to screw her up. And I said, no, I didn't go through what I went through to get her here just to screw her up. I'm not accepting that as okay. That's not my role as a parent. That is not what I'm here to do. So yeah, our relationship started breaking down, and I was still on the quest to find something that was going to help me deal with these childhood wounds that I was still carrying. And I was on a social media group and just asked the question, who or what, or what kind of things can you do to assist yourself with childhood wounding? And somebody reached out to me and told me about quantum healing. They told me about Dolores Cannon, and they told me about all these other aspects of it, and that they did this modality called Beyond Quantum Healing, which was online, and would I like to have a session? And I said yes. I didn't know anything more about it. I just said yes. And then she sent me a video of Dolores Cannon talking about quantum healing, and that was me. I was just like, this is fascinating. I need to know more about this. And there was just something going, you need to learn how to do this. So I had my session, and it was completely life altering. There was so much that came through and so much physical healing that happened. So it was incredible. And the first thing that came out of my mouth when I came up from trance was, I have to learn how to do this. And at that point, everything shifted. Excuse my cat. I just decided that was it. I was doing this course, I was learning this modality, and I was going out there to do this. And there was a drive in me that I have never felt before in my life. It was just like, I really felt I was meant to do this. And I had that confirmed in an experience I had, that this is what I was here to do. I also had a dream. I had a dream that I was on this, I don't know if it was a planet or a ship, but this off-Earth place that was it wasn't like super sci-fi or anything like that. It was very like a laid-back kind of bohemian cafe where we were going in and we were being periodically plugged into these machines, and these machines were using our energy and our energy field to help lift and shift the vibration of the planet. And I woke up from that dream and I was like, what is that? And yeah, from then it was just like, okay, I this is my path now. And yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I am now. I've been practicing for just over a year, and I just adore what I do. And Marnie's a huge part of that. Marnie's a huge part. I absolutely know that all of that process from pregnancy to now she was coming in to help me find my path to doing this work for other people. And this was, I know she has her own purpose and her own mission, but part of that was igniting my path. And I am eternally grateful to her for doing that. So yeah, that's my story.
Yes, that is so lovely. Wow, you went through a lot. I
Yeah.
halfway understand. I kind of had some issues as well, but wow, that's amazing. And I had the same thing happen. My children, the second and third, is what pushed me really into my path as well. And then, as we go along, we learn, and we're still ever learning and growing, but it's like we pick things up, put things together all along the way, and just try and find our way. And finally, at one point, we step into our full self and power and potential. And then as from there, we grow, of course, ever learning and growing.
Yeah.
So with the pregnancy then, is it pretty common, like here in the West, a lot of people go to a hospital and have, epidurals or drugs. Do you kind of have that thing there? How do you feel about natural therapies? Did you go natural? And yeah, what's your advice or opinion on that?
It's very much the same over here. Yeah, it is just, there's nothing natural about Western birth here at all. And I have always been of the thinking that, this should be as natural as possible. This is why I went into the hypnobirthing and really wanted to go down that more natural route. And I did as much as I could for as long as I could, but we ran into a bit of a struggle, and she was stuck, basically. She was in the wrong direction. I think you can give birth if a baby is in that way, but it is long, and it is much more painful than it would normally be. So by that point, the hypnobirthing was not having the desired effect. So I did go down the other route. I tried to just do the morphine thing for as long as I could. But of course, as soon as you start taking these things, it affects your blood pressure, it affects how the baby's heartbeat's going. And that's just when everything just goes, you know? Everybody starts panicking. And I mean, I think that the hypnobirthing was helpful because I think at that point, everybody else was panicking. And I was just kind of like, I'm okay. I mean, it's not comfortable, but I'm doing okay. Whereas everybody else was having a bit of a flap. I think, you know, there's so much fear around birth. There's so much driving women away from their natural instincts and how powerful we are as women and the force that we have within us when we are bearing down and, you know, pushing that baby out. We are a powerful force, and that is almost completely removed from the majority of women in society. Even, you know, even when the baby's here, we have everybody telling us what to do and, you know, how, when you can pick up the baby and where the baby has to sleep. And, you know, people just, they don't even know how to do. You know, I remember being at a mum group once and the mum saying, you know, somebody had come in and been giving us all this advice about what to do and when to start solids and all this, that and the other. And one mum put her hand up and she went, you know, what do we do at the times, you know, when there's all those other things that we have to do and nobody tells us what we do? What do we do in those instances when somebody's not there to tell us what to do? And that's what I'm trying to express, that natural instinct of, you know, mummy instinct is just completely removed from our society, and it's heartbreaking. And I feel like natural and sacred birth is something that we really need to focus on as we're ushering in this new earth template. The sacredness of birth, and you know, these births really affect us as you know, we don't remember them on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, everything that happens within your birth is imprinted on your being, your soul, and it can affect everything that you go through in your life. And this has come through in quite a few of the sessions that I've done with people, the hypnosis sessions I do, that this absolute violation on the nature of birth is one of the huge traumas that the collective needs to face. These births affect us on so many levels. These medicalized births, when we're coming out in these bright lights and this clinical metal clanky white bright space, and it is just absolutely, you know, we've come from a dark place into just a super white place with all of these clinical people with plastic, and there's nothing sacred about any of that. And there's just that, I think, that shock from the being in this safe space to this completely clinical environment is just such a shock on baby systems. And yeah, I think it really affects us hugely. So yeah, that's one of the one of the missions we're here to complete is to try and help people understand that they do have the power to choose the type of birth that they want to have. I certainly think in my instance, I'd been through so much with the pregnancy. I kind of just wanted everything to be okay. So I went with what I thought was the best way, which was a birthing pool in the hospital. It wasn't what I had wanted, but it was as much as we managed to get. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you for sharing. I agree 100%. You know, we've had this fear, and I was one of these people, like I had this fear of giving birth. I feel like I know now because I actually did after my third, you know, get sick and had my near-death experience. So I think I was kind of had a knowing in a way, but I was afraid, and so many are, and they don't even want to face, like I'm just gonna get the drugs and go through with it. But it's so, that's why we're here, right? To restore the actual empowerment that no, it's a wonderful, beautiful thing to be a woman and be able to give birth to a child. And like, instead of being so afraid, like we've been conditioned on TV, on, you know, music, all these things that just condition us, like it's just, we need the opposite, you know, in the native times and, you know, traditional ways, those were beautiful, sacred things about us. And really, there were deaths, of course, but I mean, we have so much more now that if things happen, you know, we are prepared, but that shouldn't be the environment. I agree. Now, of course, people go through things and we all make decisions. It's just learning from that right now. Next, okay, well, what would I do different next time? Or coming into your feminine and beautiful self, embracing that. That's what we're here to restore, right? And I know I had two of my children midwife in a hospital and one in a birth center. And I totally loved the birth center so much. And I've heard stories from other moms, home birth. And so I definitely am all for that kind of stuff. With my third, I happened to be in the hospital, which ended up, you know, I feel like that was divine timing because that's when I also had all my stuff happen. So it's like, that's why I was there. Even though I would have chose the birth center again, I ended up at the right place at the right time, right? So we also have to listen to that intuition. I had to really fight that within myself, like not going to a birth center again and choosing to go to a midwife at the hospital. So our intuition is so key as well, right? And we just know. And I love you know, that you did the hypnobirthing. I took that on with my third as well. You know, I knew I just had this knowing that I needed to go to a hospital. So I thought, okay, what can I do to prepare myself then with being in this environment? And everything went so much better as far as the birth went. Yeah. So I'm all for that as well. Yeah. And we're here to restore that, right?
I feel like the future of these births, we may get to a space where we almost as if we go back to the ancient civilizations, the Egyptians, Lemuria, these places where birth was in temples and they used crystal and sound. And if we could incorporate somehow our theta trance or these, you know, the hypnobirthing, but to, you know, the next level, and birth returned to being these sacred experiences, where the babies, it's understood how the effects of birth, what that does to the baby. I feel like that's the way. If we do get to the new earth, then that's what we're gonna have to create, is these sacred birth temples. That's what I'm envisioning.
Yes, me too. I'm with you.
Yeah.
And our connection, you know, with Mother Earth, and of course our divine connection. So do you have any thoughts on that or experiences there? What's your take and feeling on that? How important that connection is with earth and the divine, Father Sky, Father Heaven, Mother Earth, and bringing that into ourselves.
Oh, it's absolutely everything. I think when we realize our connection to the divine is through the heart, that is where it lives. That is where oneness lives. We have these little boxes of oneness inside of us that we carry around, and our hearts have this frequency that we gift to everyone we meet, and this is imprinted within us. That we have this heart print left on us from everybody that's with us, and this is all connected to this oneness, this connection to the divine. And yes, it's when we start to go back to living heart-based lives, that is when we're going to be able to really, really function as full beings again. But yes, developing and nurturing that connection with one, Mama Earth, and two, Father Sky, when we are able to nourish that central channel within us, that's when we can have both work through us. And that's what's going to assist healing ourselves and this life, this society, this world. So yeah, hugely important to nourish both connections. It's a big part of the work that I do is we have these experiences where we go into regression, into hypnosis states, and we can go and visit different aspects of ourselves, different lifetimes, different worlds. And when we do that for a length of time, we then reach our higher self, and we can have our higher self speak through us. And I've had a number of these sessions where we connect, and it's incredible when you listen to your higher self speak through you. The more you practice that, the more you actually start embodying your higher self, and you start living in that consciousness, being like fully connected. The more we keep the ego self to the side and we align with that higher self, then yeah, it's magical. It's just absolutely a wonderful place to be and cultivate that connection and nourish that connection. It's just so important. It's yeah, beautiful work.
Yes. Thank you. That was such a beautiful description. Just so some people may not know, and I mean, I know, but some people may not know, like, what is your description? Maybe you've had religious people, or you may know people, who have a different belief or that kind of thing. What's like a way to explain, that kind of higher self thing and the connection? And, do you have a way to talk about that?
Yeah, my understanding of the higher self, it is the aspect of you that it is the universal aspect of you, the part of you that is unconditioned. It is it is unharmed by humanness. It is the next step to your soul, essentially. It is the part of you without the conditioning of the conscious mind. It's your soul, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, the piece of you very more in tune with the truth, with intuition, that piece of us, right?
Yeah.
That inner knowing. The inner nagging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. All right. Well, how about, do you have any favorite like heart melting moments or funny moments with your daughter that you can think of? We have a lot, I know, but if there's any certain ones that you have to share.
Yeah, there was one that happened a little while ago during this lockdown time. She has these little rabbit toys that are a family, and I've noticed that she always really likes the concept of family, and it's just me and her now. So she really enjoys it when she sees her grandparents, and she gets to spend time with her dad at weekends and things. But these little rabbit toy family, she kept putting them in a little wooden bath and carrying them around, and this was her thing. She just, for about a day and a half, this was her thing. And she kept naming them all, and it was this mommy, this was brother, this was sister, this was daddy. And I was just talking to her, and I was kind of saying, I'm sorry that you don't have any brothers or sisters, and I know it's just me and you that are together all the time, but your daddy, he loves you, and although I'm not with your daddy and your daddy's not here all the time, we love each other and we love you so much. And it was so sweet. She picked up the mummy doll and put it in my hand. And then she picked up the little baby doll, put it in my hand. And then she gave me a big hug. And it was just like, I just melted. It's just like, oh God, it was so lovely.
Oh,
She understood. She got it. And, it's like, although we're not the traditional family unit as every cartoon likes to show her, or what, she gets it. And we try and show her that although it's not the usual thing, nobody's fighting with each other, nobody's trying to hurt each other, there's just love. And our main focus is that she knows that she's loved. So yeah, that was a nice one.
yes. Oh, yeah, that is so sweet.
Yeah, so
I'm just imagining. All right, let's see. How about, did you always, had you always felt different as a child, kind of different than others?
Yeah, oh yes. Yeah. I remember very early on, I remember like primary school, 5 years old. Sorry, my daughter's just come into the room, so I'm just trying to keep her occupied, but not too noisy. Yeah, I remember my first year of school when I was 5 years old. We were getting taught about Christianity and religion, and the indoctrination was beginning. And I remember thinking to myself, this is nonsense. None of this is true. And even at 5 years old, I was just so aware that this was not right. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to put that volume right down. She's being so noisy. Hang on. There. And I remember thinking, something's not right here. This isn't this way. I was like, where's the beauty in the heart? And then, I just felt this controlling aspect of it all. Even at 5, I was just like, this is not quite right. And yeah, the whole way through my school career was just, it was a very academic school I went to. And I was really creative. I was dyslexic, and this was a time when there were still quite a few teachers around who didn't believe in dyslexia. So my first few years of school were really difficult because I was very dyslexic, and there was this huge clash. So there was this sort of split between me and my peers, even then, you know, I was different, and I was, you know, and I felt very different. I learned in a completely different way to everybody else, and I just had a different viewpoint of everything. So yeah, I always felt there was something very different with me. I spent a lot of my childhood in a daydream because that was more comfortable. Yeah. Very early on, I felt different, and I always felt that I didn't have like imaginary friends, because to me the guides or beings that I spoke to, they weren't imaginary, they were very much real, and they kept me very safe and very comfortable, and they helped me. So I never called them imaginary friends, they were just my helpers. And yeah, I spent a lot of time on my own as well. I grew up in the countryside, so nature and animals, and like I used to sneak up on rabbits. Like I used to get so close to them that I'd be able to pick them up. They would freak out for a second, but then they'd be okay. There was me trying to, you know, like connect and woo with, you know, all the wild animals. That was me as a kid. Very sort of creative and imaginative, and yeah, not the normal kind of. I wasn't able to conform. I always felt there was something not okay with it. Yeah.
Yes. I think that, you know, I think it's so much more common than what people want to admit or want to like share. You
Yeah.
know, I really think all of us, or most of us, you know, want to be one with the land, especially as children. You know, it's like you're told then as you're growing up, oh, that's pretend, you need to grow up and this stuff. But really, I feel like most of us, you know, we had a divine connection. I mean, that's where, you know, to me, the Holy Spirit comes through. And as children, we're not as conditioned yet, you know, so I feel like if so many people could just go back to that and remember, you know, our feelings as a child, and that we did have a connection and we were more connected to each other. We wanted, you know, each other, and to be out with the animals, with on the, you know, barefoot on the grass. I mean, it is more natural, I really feel, than most people want to, you know, bring up. But we know, you know, those of us who are in our path, on our purpose, on our mission, but you know, sometimes the people who are still kind of caught up in the chaos and caught up in the life, not really living,
Yeah.
you know, they've gotten lost. But everyone can return. Everyone, I feel like, well, most, not everyone, but you know, had that at one point, and it's just really about reconnecting with that again.
Yeah.
That's how this all flourishes, right, and comes to fruition.
Yeah.
The connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I was just reminded of when I was 12 years old, and my dad was watching Bill Hicks on TV. I don't know if you know the comedian Bill Hicks. And I was 12 years old, and I came in and I started watching some of it, and I just remember thinking to myself, this is the first person I've seen on television that is telling the truth. Although he's a comedian, he's telling jokes and this, that, and the other, I was like, this guy's telling the truth. Why isn't he on the television? Why am I just finding out about this person now? And it was the same with Michael Jackson when I was little. I loved Michael Jackson when I was little. And, you know, everybody else was kind of like, why do you like this person so much? And I was like, I don't know. He's just so pure. He's just got such a pure heart. It's just so pure. It's funny, but it was funny how these these people came into my awareness at different stages of my life, and they were such a help in my understanding of the world, because there was, I just felt I just felt everything was not quite right. And then when I eventually read The Three Waves of Volunteers by Dolores Cannon, that was when it all went, oh, okay. I get it now. I know. Okay, we're all coming in different stages. That's why we're doing it. Yeah, then it all made sense.
I haven't read that one yet. I'll have to look into that.
Oh, it's amazing. It's a journey. Just, yeah, there's so many parts. She talks of she puts parts of her sessions in there that she's done with people, and there's so many bits of what they're saying which just click in so much to like what, us star seeds or way shores or light work, whatever you want to call us. There's so many things that link up to the things we experience, things I experienced personally. It was just like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. You have goosebumps just reading it. It's an amazing book.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay. Well, how about kind of any last words you'd like to say, advice, opinions, advice for anybody, trying to come into their purpose, or anything you want to share?
Oh, I think trust is a huge part of the process, and nourishing that connection with the unseen world. If we could have even a tiny glimpse of the level in which we are supported and loved and nurtured through our human 3D lives, if we could understand that, then we would never be afraid again, because we are so cared for. And and I think that's when we can develop that connection and that trust to these unseen aspects of our lives. That's when we can trust our path, because we are always guided, and no path we go down is the wrong path. It's all the right path. All experiences, all traumas, all of these things are to enhance you and to nourish who you are. And even all of that stuff I went through when Marnie came into the world, I have so much gratitude and appreciation for that journey, because all of it molds you to where you're meant to be. So yeah, trust your path, trust your journey, and know you're loved and guided. And that's my message.
Yes, beautiful. Love it. Agree. All right. So where can people find your work? And if you have any special events, anything coming up, and how to contact you for services, I'll also put it in the description, but if you want to share now.
Thank you. Yes, I can be found on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, but my website is www.rafaelasoulsessions. I offer a few different services, and I'm continually ongoing with my development of my work. I have a YouTube channel as well, so if you can find me on YouTube, you can see a little bit more about the work I do, the messages I bring over, the collaborations I do, and so that's where I can be found.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us. I love your story, and you're just another great example for all the moms, everyone but moms, yes, to step into the truth and ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yep. Bye. Okay.